The text message arrived at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I remember because I was stirring my coffee, watching the steam rise from my favorite mug, the one with the little crack on the handle that I'd been meaning to replace for months but somehow never did. Hope you're doing well. Would love to catch up soon. Rachel. Rachel. My ex-boyfriend Marcus's new girlfriend. The woman who'd been just a friend for the entire last year of our relationship. The same Rachel who'd liked every single one of my Instagram posts while secretly meeting my boyfriend for work lunches that lasted 3 hours. I stared at that message for a solid minute, my coffee growing cold. Most people would have deleted it immediately. Most people would have blocked the number. But most people don't have the particular combination of Southern hospitality and calculated patience that runs in my family. You see, I'd been raised by a woman who could smile sweetly while serving her worst enemy the perfect slice of pecan pie. My grandmother used to say, "Honey, the best revenge is served warm, preferably with a side of cornbread." I typed back, "Rachel, what a lovely surprise. I'm doing wonderful, thank you for asking." The response came within seconds. I was thinking, maybe we could grab coffee? I know this might sound strange, but I'd really like to clear the air between us. Clear the air. That's rich. The air had been crystal clear for 6 months now. Clear enough to see Marcus's hand on her lower back at the grocery store. Clear enough to watch them house hunting in the neighborhood I'd picked out for us. Clear enough to hear through the apartment walls when she moved into the place that was supposed to be ours. Coffee sounds perfect. Actually, I have an even better idea. Why don't you and Marcus come over for Thanksgiving dinner? I'm hosting this year. I could practically feel her confusion through the screen. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. That's really generous of you. Are you sure? Absolutely. In fact, why don't you invite your parents too? I'd love to meet them. The more the merrier. This time, the pause lasted a full 5 minutes. I used that time to start mentally planning a guest list that would make this Thanksgiving one for the history books. Wow, Yes, that would be really nice. My parents would love to meet you too. Perfect. Phase 1, complete. Let me back up and explain why this invitation wasn't the act of a woman who'd moved on gracefully. It was the opening move in a chess game I'd been planning since the day I found Marcus's phone buzzing with good morning texts from R. while he was still in my bed. Marcus and I had been together for 3 years. 3 years of split grocery bills, shared Netflix passwords, and carefully coordinated holiday schedules. 3 years of me believing we were building something real while he was apparently auditioning my replacement behind my back. The breakup itself had been a masterpiece of gaslighting. "We've grown apart," he'd said. "I think we want different things now." Classic lines delivered with just enough sincerity to make me question whether I'd imagined the whole relationship. But here's the thing about dating someone for 3 years. You learn things. You learn that Marcus's mom, Patricia, has very specific opinions about appropriate women for her son. You learn that his father, Robert, values traditional family structures above all else. You learn that Rachel's parents, whom I'd researched extensively on social media, are devout Catholics who believe in courtship, not cohabitation. And you definitely learn that Marcus has been living with Rachel for 4 months while telling both sets of parents they're taking things slow. I spent the next 2 hours crafting the perfect group text to my family. Emergency family meeting. Thanksgiving is about to get very interesting. My sister Lucy called within minutes. "Please tell me you're not planning to poison anyone." "Of course not," I laughed. "I'm planning something much more sophisticated than that." Should I be worried? Only if you're afraid of a little theater. The truth was, I had every right to be bitter. Marcus hadn't just broken up with me, he'd systematically dismantled my entire life plan. We'd been looking at engagement rings. We'd talked about kids. I'd turned down a job offer in Seattle because he'd said he couldn't imagine living anywhere else but here. But betrayal is a funny thing. It either breaks you or it clarifies everything. And sitting there in my kitchen, looking at Rachel's desperate-to-please text messages, I felt more clarity than I'd had in months. This wasn't about getting Marcus back. This was about justice. This was about making sure that everyone involved understood exactly what kind of man they were dealing with. This was about serving the truth on a silver platter. garnished with all the family drama that Marcus had been so carefully hiding. I opened my laptop and started typing invitations. First, my parents. They'd moved to Arizona last year, but would absolutely fly back for this. Then my sister and her husband. My cousin Diana, who'd always suspected Marcus was too good to be true. My Aunt Helen, who had a sixth sense for family secrets, and the subtlety of a sledgehammer when it came to exposing them. By the time I finished, I had 12 confirmations for what was shaping up to be the most memorable Thanksgiving dinner in family history. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Rachel. Marcus is so excited. He's been worried about how weird things might be between us all. This is really mature of you. Mature, that's one word for it. I typed back, I'm just grateful for the chance to bring everyone together. Family is everything, don't you think? If she only knew how much I meant that. The next morning, I woke up with the kind of energy that comes from having a purpose. For the first time in months, I had something to look forward to, something to plan for, something that wasn't just surviving another day without the life I'd thought I was building. I made myself breakfast, real breakfast, not the sad toast I'd been living on, and started making lists, menu planning, seating arrangements, conversation topics, all the little details that would make this gathering absolutely perfect. My phone rang while I was calculating turkey sizes. Mom's caller ID made me smile. Sweetheart, I've been thinking about your invitation all night, she said without preamble. Are you sure you're ready for this? More ready than I've ever been. You know your father and I support whatever you need to do to heal, but I also know that look in your voice. It's the same tone you had when you decided to run for student council president in 8th grade. I laughed despite myself. I won that election. You did. You also got Tommy Richardson suspended for vote tampering. He was cheating. He was. And you proved it beautifully. I'm just saying, be careful, honey. Don't let this consume you. But that was the thing. I didn't feel consumed. I felt liberated. For months, I'd been carrying around this weight of confusion and self-doubt. Had I been a bad girlfriend? Had I missed the signs? Was I not enough for Marcus? Now I knew the truth. I hadn't been the problem. Marcus was just a coward who'd rather sneak around than have an honest conversation. And Rachel? She was either complicit or willfully blind. Either way, both of them were about to get a reality check. I spent the afternoon shopping for ingredients, and that's when I ran into Marcus's mother, Patricia, at the grocery store. She was examining avocados with the intensity of a gemologist, and I almost walked past her entirely. But then I remembered my manners. Patricia, how lovely to see you. She looked up, startled. Oh, hello, dear. How are you holding up? Holding up. As if I'd been through some natural disaster instead of just dumping her lying son. I'm doing wonderfully, thank you. Actually, I'm so glad I ran into you. I wanted to make sure you knew about Thanksgiving dinner. Her forehead creased. Thanksgiving dinner? Yes. I've invited Marcus and Rachel over, along with her parents. I thought it would be nice for everyone to meet. The color drained from Patricia's face. Her parents? The Kellys. Lovely people from what I hear. Very traditional family values. Patricia's grip on her shopping cart tightened. Marcus didn't mention. Oh, I'm sure he just wanted to surprise you. You know how he is about planning ahead. Actually, I knew exactly how Marcus was about planning ahead. He was terrible at it. He was the kind of person who bought Christmas gifts on December 23rd and forgot about Valentine's Day until he saw the decorations in store windows. Well, Patricia said carefully, I suppose we should coordinate. No need. I have everything handled. Just bring yourselves an appetites. Oh, and maybe you could bring some of those wonderful dinner rolls you made for Easter. Rachel mentioned how much she's been looking forward to trying your cooking. This was a complete lie. Rachel had never mentioned Patricia's cooking, but I'd heard Marcus complain about his mother's competitive streak in the kitchen often enough to know this would land exactly where I intended. Patricia's smile became noticeably strained. Of course. I'll bring several types. Perfect. See you Thursday at 4. I walked away feeling like I'd just scored the first touchdown in a game Marcus didn't even know he was playing. The rest of the week passed in a blur of preparation. Not just cooking preparation, strategic preparation. I called my cousin Diana, who worked in social media marketing, and asked her to do a little research. Find out everything you can about the Kelly family, I told her. Church activities, social media posts, family values. I need to understand what we're working with, Diana called back within hours. Girl, you are playing with fire. These people are not just Catholic, they're involved in their church's marriage ministry. They counsel engaged couples. And get this, Rachel's father is a deacon. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. What about their social media? Very family-focused. Lots of posts about the sanctity of marriage, the importance of courtship, traditional gender roles. Oh, and they share a lot of articles about the moral decline of modern dating culture. I could practically hear the pieces clicking into place. Diana, you're a genius. I'm also concerned. What exactly are you planning? I'm planning to serve dinner to my guests. What they serve each other is up to them. That night, I got a text from Marcus. Hey, thanks for inviting us. Rachel's parents are really excited to meet everyone. Her dad keeps talking about how rare it is to find young people with such maturity and grace. Maturity and grace. If only he knew. I typed back, I'm looking forward to meeting them too. It'll be nice to finally have everyone together as one big family. The word family was carefully chosen. Marcus had spent 3 years talking about how much he valued family, how important it was to him that his future wife fit in with his parents, how he wanted to find someone who shared his traditional values. Well, Thursday was going to be a master class in traditional values. My sister Lucy came over Wednesday night to help with prep work. She found me in the kitchen, surrounded by recipe cards and seating charts. You know, she said, peeling potatoes with surgical precision, I've been thinking about this whole situation. And I think Marcus might actually deserve what's coming to him. I looked up from my turkey brine. What's coming to him? The truth. In front of everyone who matters to him. In front of his parents, her parents, all of us. He's going to have to explain himself. I'm not making him explain anything. I'm just providing the opportunity. Lucy grinned. Like I said, he deserves it. Thursday morning arrived with the kind of crisp November air that makes everything feel possible. I woke up at 6, not because I had to, but because I was genuinely excited. The kind of excited you feel on Christmas morning when you're 7 years old and you know something amazing is waiting under the tree. I made coffee and reviewed my timeline one more time. Everything had to be perfect. Not just the food, though that would be flawless, but the timing, the seating, the conversation flow. I'd orchestrated dinner parties before, but never one with this much riding on it. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Anything I can bring? My mom made her famous green bean casserole and my dad's bringing wine. That sounds perfect. I have everything else covered. Just bring yourselves and get ready for a feast. What I didn't mention was that I'd spent the past 3 days having very specific conversations with very specific people. Starting with my Aunt Helen, who had a gift for asking exactly the right questions at exactly the right moment. Now, Helen, I'd said during our phone call, I want you to know that Marcus has been seeing someone new. Her name is Rachel, and she's lovely. They've been together for about 6 months now. 6 months? Helen's voice had that particular sharpness that meant she was filing information away for future use. That's quite soon after you two broke up. Well, you know how these things go. Sometimes when you know, you know. Mm-hmm. And they're living together? Oh, I'm not sure about their living arrangements. You'd have to ask them directly. I'd had similar conversations with my parents, my sister, and my cousin Diana. Nothing accusatory, nothing gossipy. Just simple, factual statements that would naturally lead to questions. By noon, I had a house that smelled like heaven, and a dining room that looked like something out of a magazine. 12 place settings, perfectly arranged. Candles that would cast exactly the right amount of warm light. A centerpiece that would encourage conversation without blocking sightlines. And the seating chart. Oh, the seating chart was my masterpiece. I'd placed Marcus and Rachel at opposite ends of the table, with their respective parents flanked around them. This wasn't accidental. I wanted everyone to have a clear view of both sides of this particular conversation. My parents would arrive first, at 3:30, then my sister and her husband, my cousin Diana at 3:45, Aunt Helen at 3:50. By the time the guests of honor arrived at 4 hours, the house would be full of people who loved me and had very specific questions about the timeline of recent events. At 3:28, my doorbell rang. Mom and Dad, punctual as always, carrying flowers and wearing the kind of determined smiles that meant they were ready for battle. "How are you feeling, sweetheart?" Mom asked, pulling me into a hug that lasted just a beat too long. "Honestly, I feel great. Better than I've felt in months." Dad was already surveying the dining room setup with the eye of a man who'd spent 40 years in corporate negotiations. "This is quite the production. I want everyone to feel welcome." "Oh, they will," he said, and something in his tone made me think he understood exactly what kind of welcome I had in mind. Lucy arrived with her husband Tom, both of them carrying covered dishes and barely contained curiosity. Diana showed up with a bottle of wine and a look that suggested she'd done additional research since our last conversation. "I have updates," she whispered, cornering me in the kitchen. "Tell me." "Rachel's Instagram stories from last weekend. She posted a picture of her and Marcus at the farmer's market, and the location tag shows they were there at 9 a.m. on a Sunday." I raised an eyebrow. "And?" "And her parents think she goes to 8 a.m. Mass every Sunday. She's been posting pictures of coffee and pastries after church for months." The plot was thickening beautifully. Aunt Helen arrived fashionably late, as always, bearing a covered dish and wearing the kind of smile that had struck fear into the hearts of family gatherings for decades. "Where should I put the stuffing?" she asked, but her eyes were already scanning the room, cataloging details, preparing for the main event. At exactly 4 p.m., the doorbell rang again. I smoothed my dress, a carefully chosen shade of deep burgundy that made me look both elegant and slightly mysterious, and went to answer it. Marcus stood on my doorstep looking uncomfortable in a button-down shirt I'd never seen before. Rachel was beside him, clutching a casserole dish and wearing a nervous smile. Behind them, an older couple who could only be her parents stood holding wine and wearing expressions of polite curiosity. "Welcome," I said, throwing my arms wide. "I'm so glad you could make it." The introductions were a masterpiece of awkwardness. Marcus kept glancing around the room like he was expecting hidden cameras. Rachel's parents, Robert and Catherine Kelly, were exactly as advertised: polite, traditional, and clearly thrilled to be meeting their daughter's boyfriend's family. "Thank you so much for having us," Catherine Kelly said, pressing the wine into my hands. "Rachel has told us so much about you." "All good things, I hope," I replied, leading them into the living room where my family was waiting. The next 30 minutes were a symphony of small talk and subtle interrogation. My family, bless them, played their parts perfectly. Casual questions about how long Marcus and Rachel had been together, innocent inquiries about their living situation, gentle probes about wedding plans and family traditions. Through it all, I watched Marcus grow increasingly tense. He kept shooting glances at Rachel, who was clearly beginning to realize that this dinner might not be the simple, "let's all be friends" gathering she'd expected. "Shall we move to the dining room?" I announced when the tension had reached exactly the right pitch. "I think everything is ready." As we filed into the dining room, I caught Marcus's eye. For just a moment, I saw a flash of something that might have been recognition, or maybe fear. Good. He was finally starting to understand that this wasn't just dinner. This was a reckoning. The moment everyone was seated, I knew I had them exactly where I wanted them. The lighting was perfect, warm enough to feel intimate, bright enough to catch every expression. The wine was flowing just enough to loosen tongues but not enough to blur judgment. And the seating arrangement was working like a charm. "Before we begin," I said, raising my glass, "I'd like to make a toast. To new beginnings, honest conversations, and the importance of family." Everyone raised their glasses, though Marcus's hand was noticeably shaking. "To family," my father echoed, and the way he said it made it clear he understood exactly what kind of family gathering this was about to become. We started with appetizers and small talk, but I could feel the undercurrent of tension building. Rachel's father, Robert, was asking Marcus about his work, his family, his intentions. Standard father of the girlfriend questions, but Marcus was answering like he was under cross-examination. "So you work in marketing?" Robert Kelly was saying. "That must be exciting. Rachel mentioned you two met through work?" Rachel jumped in quickly. "Actually, we met through mutual friends." I watched Marcus's face carefully. Strike one. "Oh, how lovely," my mother said with perfect innocence. "How long ago was that?" "About a year and a half ago," Rachel said. Marcus nearly choked on his wine. Strike two. "A year and a half?" Aunt Helen's voice cut through the conversation like a knife. "How interesting. Marcus, didn't you and my niece break up about 6 months ago?" The silence that followed was deafening. I could practically hear everyone doing the math. "Well," Marcus said carefully, "we were just friends for a long time." "Just friends," my father repeated. And somehow he made those two words sound like an accusation. Rachel's parents exchanged a look that could have frozen fire. Catherine Kelly's smile had become noticeably strained. "Marcus," she said with the kind of forced politeness that meant trouble, "Rachel has told us so much about your relationship. She mentioned you have your own place?" Yes. Yes, I do." "And where is that?" Marcus glanced at Rachel, who was staring at her plate like it might offer her an escape route. It's on Maple Street, the apartments near the university." "Oh, how convenient," Robert Kelly said. "Rachel lives on Maple Street, too. What a coincidence." "Actually," Rachel said quietly, "we live together." The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. Catherine Kelly's fork clattered against her plate. "You live together?" she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mom, I can explain." "You told us you were taking things slowly," Robert Kelly interrupted, his voice rising. "You said you were following the courtship principles we discussed." "We are, Dad. We're just—" "Living in sin is not taking things slowly, Rachel." The explosion had begun, and I hadn't even served the main course yet. Marcus tried to jump in. "Mr. Kelly, I understand your concerns, but do you?" Robert Kelly's face was turning red. "Do you understand that my daughter has been lying to us for months?" "She wasn't lying exactly. What would you call it?" My Aunt Helen, bless her heart, chose that moment to twist the knife. "Marcus, I'm confused. When did you say you and Rachel started dating?" It's complicated." "Complicated how?" "We were friends first and then what? You started dating while you were still with my niece?" The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Marcus's face went white. "It wasn't like that," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Then what was it like?" my sister Lucy asked, her voice deadly calm. I sat back and watched the dominoes fall. This was better than I'd even hoped for. I hadn't had to say a single accusatory word. I just invited everyone to dinner and let the truth speak for itself. Rachel was crying now, quiet tears that she was trying to hide behind her napkin. Her parents were having a whispered argument across the table that everyone could hear. "You raised her better than this," Catherine was hissing at her husband. "I thought I did," he replied. Marcus was looking around the table like a trapped animal. "Look, I know this looks bad, but what?" my father asked. "But you thought you could lie to two families and no one would figure it out? I never meant for it to happen this way." "How did you mean for it to happen?" Mom asked. "Did you mean to have an affair?" "It wasn't an affair." "What would you call it?" Aunt Helen asked. The silence stretched on. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Finally, he said, "I made mistakes." "Mistakes?" I spoke for the first time since the toast, and everyone turned to look at me. "Is that what you call lying to me for months? Telling me you wanted to take things slow while you were already planning a future with someone else? I never meant to hurt you." "But you did hurt me. You hurt me. You lied to your parents. You helped Rachel lie to her parents. And now you're sitting at my table acting like you're the victim." Rachel finally looked up from her plate. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." "Are you sorry you did it? Or sorry you got caught?" She didn't answer. Robert Kelly stood up abruptly. "Catherine, we're leaving." "Dad, please. You want to live like adults? Then you can face the consequences like adults. Don't call us until you're ready to tell us the truth about everything." They left without another word, taking Rachel's green bean casserole with them. Marcus sat in stunned silence for a moment, then turned to me. "Are you happy now?" "Actually," I said, cutting into my perfectly prepared turkey. "I am. I'm happy that everyone finally knows the truth. I'm happy that Rachel's parents understand what kind of man their daughter is dating. And I'm happy that your parents now know why we really broke up." Marcus looked at his parents, who were staring at him with expressions of deep disappointment. "Son," Patricia said quietly, "I think you need to leave." And just like that, it was over. After Marcus and Rachel left, separately I noticed, the dining room felt lighter somehow, not just because there were fewer people, but because the oppressive weight of lies and pretense had lifted. My family stayed to help clean up, and for the first time in months, we had a real conversation. "I have to admit," my father said, drying dishes with methodical precision, "I'm proud of you." "For what? Ruining Thanksgiving dinner?" "For standing up for yourself. For refusing to let them rewrite history." Mom nodded from her position at the sink. "You didn't attack them, sweetheart. You just gave them enough rope to hang themselves." I still feel a little bad for Rachel's parents. "Don't," Aunt Helen said firmly. "They needed to know. Better now than after a wedding." Lucy was putting away leftovers with the efficiency of someone who'd clearly thought this through. "What happens now?" "Now?" I smiled, genuinely relaxed for the first time in hours. "Now I move on. Really move on." The truth was, I already felt different. The anger that had been eating at me for months was gone. Not because I'd gotten revenge, though I had to admit, that felt pretty good, but because I'd finally gotten closure. Real closure. Marcus texted me the next morning. "That was cruel, and you know it." I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "No, Marcus. What was cruel was lying to me for months. What was cruel was making me question my own reality. What was cruel was letting me plan a future with you while you were already building one with someone else." Last night was just the truth. He didn't respond. Rachel texted me that afternoon. "I know you probably hate me, but I wanted you to know that Marcus and I broke up. My parents won't speak to me, and I'm moving back home. I guess I deserved this." I felt a pang of something. Not quite sympathy, but not satisfaction either. "I don't hate you, Rachel. I just wish you'd been honest from the beginning. With me, with your parents, with yourself. I know. I'm sorry. I hope you figure things out." And surprisingly, I meant it. The weeks that followed were remarkably peaceful. I threw myself into work, picked up hobbies I'd abandoned, started dating again. Not seriously, just casually, remembering what it felt like to have conversations with people who weren't carrying around hidden agendas. 3 months later, I ran into Marcus at a coffee shop downtown. He looked tired, older somehow. We nodded politely, the way you do with someone you used to know. "How are you?" he asked, and it seemed like a genuine question. "I'm good. Really good. You?" "I'm figuring things out." I nodded. "That's important." "Listen," he said, glancing around the coffee shop nervously. "I owe you an apology. A real one." "You don't owe me anything, Marcus." "Yes, I do. I handled everything wrong. I should have been honest with you from the beginning. I should have ended things properly before I started things with Rachel. I should have—" "Marcus," I interrupted gently, "I forgive you." He looked surprised. "You do?" "I do. Not because what you did was okay, but because holding on to anger was hurting me more than it was hurting you." We talked for a few more minutes, carefully avoiding the deeper waters of our shared history. It was civil, even pleasant. When he left, I realized that I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not even nostalgia. Just nothing. And that felt like freedom. 6 months after the Thanksgiving dinner that changed everything, I was sitting in my backyard, reading a book and enjoying the spring sunshine, when my phone rang. It was Patricia, Marcus's mother. "I hope you don't mind me calling," she said. "I wanted to thank you." "Thank me?" "For that dinner, for showing us who Marcus really was. I know that couldn't have been easy for you." "It wasn't easy," I admitted, "but it was necessary. He's in therapy now. Individual therapy, and he's working on, well, on being honest, With himself, with us, with everyone. That's good. I'm glad. I also wanted you to know that your mother and I have been having coffee occasionally. She's a wonderful woman. I smiled. She is? Take care of yourself, dear. You deserve someone who sees your worth. After she hung up, I sat in my garden for a long time, thinking about family dinners and second chances and the strange ways that people come into and out of our lives. The truth had set us all free, even if it had taken a perfectly planned Thanksgiving dinner to deliver it. And honestly, I wouldn't change a thing.